Today, we're talking to Nikki Nurse of a log cabin in Brooklyn about her experience caring for her mom with Alzheimer's and how to build in wellness routines as a caregiver.
So my name is Nikki Nurse, and I am a daughter and a wellness advocate. Um, I was a caregiver for my mom for 12 years until she passed away, February 2023. And I have just been on a mission on helping caregivers to prioritize their wellness and their well-being.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing about your mom. It's a long time to be caring for her. And I'm sure this transition has been complicated. Um, can you talk a little bit about, in those 12 years? I imagine many, many things were different over those 12 years, but what was most challenging and what was most rewarding of your caregiving experience at large?
Yeah, it was definitely large, right? Not small. So there were a lot of challenges, but I found that there was balance in being a caregiver. So initially, when I started, I was working in the fashion industry, and when my mom was diagnosed, she was diagnosed in her late 50s. She was about 57. And I quit my job so that I could take care of her because she was just my person. And I took it on as a project. Like, all right, mom, we're going to Staples. We getting this big wall calendar and we gonna write down everything that we're doing today. It didn't work like that. Because my mom, again, was in her late 50s. And at that point, there's a stage in your life where you feel like, you just want to relax. You just want to travel or do whatever you want. You don't want anyone telling you what to do, right? And here I come with all this energy trying to tell her what to do. So it didn't work out so great initially, and there was a bit of a learning curve, but with the bumping of heads that we both had, I was able to find space for a conversation with her so we could just talk about what this new lifestyle was going to be for both of us. Because it wasn't just that she had dementia, it was also that I would be there to help her through that journey. And I didn't want her to see it as this um, devastating diagnosis, even though it might feel that way. I wanted her to still find hope that she wasn't going to be alone and that I would ensure that she'd have dignity of care throughout the entire time. My mom was also a nurse for patients with dementia. So I did come into this knowing some things about the disease, but I had no idea that it was not just losing your memory. I soon found out that when you have dementia, which is what I would like to refer to as a cognitive decline or cognitive disability, it it really affects your overall life, your personality, your senses, everything is affected. So when it came to my mom and caring for her, the challenge was how do I get her to remember certain things or engage with certain things. And instead of triggering her memory, as in, giving her a direction to something, I would trigger her senses. So her sense of sight, her sense of touch, her sense of taste. And I did that with intention so that she could connect the dots on her own. So one example would be when it came to her grooming, um, she never wanted to brush her teeth or comb her hair. It was I initially I thought maybe she didn't want to do that because it was like keeping her sense of control in a sense. Because everything was being stripped from her and taken away. So the only thing that she did have was her body and the things that she could touch. So to help her along with that, I started playing music and music became my perfect sidekick. Like I was Batman and music was Robin. And whenever I wanted her to engage with some grooming activities, I would put on the Jackson 5 and she'd get in that bathroom like, yeah, let's do it. Why are we here? Oh, brushing our teeth. Okay, if we must. So it really did help. And I learned so much about the power of music and how it does connect and trigger your memories. Other things too, like the sense of sight. My mom's favorite color was red, so I made sure to always have red nails on or to wear red lipstick. To make sure that when I was making her meals, that they were in a red bowl, that she had red sneakers on, that she had a red bag, and even like her headphones for her music, that they were red. So it created a sense of calm for her, and also it helped her to associate that these are things that are familiar, so I am safe. So, in spite of the challenges, there were a lot of great benefits from that because I was able to pivot and learn. And a lot of the learning, it took some time, but once we got it, I mean, it was good. It was golden.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those examples too. I think those are really helpful to hear. Like, not everything works for everyone, and these, it took you a while to unlock what worked for you guys. Your mom passed a couple months ago. How has the transition been for you since then?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, my mom, it the transition has been tricky because again, when you have a cognitive decline like dementia, you as a caregiver are going to be faced with anticipatory grief. So you're kind of like always on alert. You never know when will be the last. And there are specifically three stages to dementia, the early stage, middle stage, and end stage. But within those stages, anything can happen, any complication can occur. So, yeah, as a caregiver, you're constantly thinking and you're always aware of that. So, when my mom was in the final stages, it was a 2-year journey for her on that transition. And it did take a lot on my emotions. And also, it helped me to understand the purpose of being present. It's not just sitting in a room with her and, texting someone on my phone. It was really about meaningful moments with her and protecting her peace, not just being in the space and doing what I enjoy or watching something I enjoy. It was really protecting her peace and making sure that I was still honoring her and giving her the dignity that she was deserving of, even though she stopped speaking, even though she wasn't able to move on her own. I still honored her as a human going through this journey. So how I've been handling her passing has been through a lot of quiet moments, therapy, pet therapy too. I've also been working out a lot. I think what has been really effective with me when I'm going through something emotionally is to work on something physically. So, because it's like my heart space and I can't touch my emotions, the things that I would want to control, like the sadness and the depression, I can't put my hand to it. But what I can do is I can take a walk. I can be outside. I can get the vitamin D. I can go and lift some weights. And that helps me to process the grief or whatever emotion that it is that I'm feeling in that moment. So I've been doing a lot of working out. They know me by name. That's at the gym. It's like my cheers. So I guess I'm aging myself with that. But yes, they know me very well over there. And also, I'm trying to learn how to connect with people again because being a caregiver, I did isolate myself a lot. It was a challenge to be a millennial caregiver because of how vast the change is when caregiving culture has changed. So it's usually, an older relative taking care of another older relative. But when you are, I was in my late 20s, I was 28 when I started becoming my mom's primary caregiver. And I couldn't find anybody that looked like me or sounded like me or had the same struggles as I did or was even open to learning about new techniques in managing someone's care. So that was a bit of a tricky spell for me, but now I'm learning to connect with people. I'm learning that it is okay to connect with others and to have other people understand that I'm grieving and to speak about it and not feel ashamed about the grief either.
Yeah, I love that. After my mom died, I remember people would sort of, they sort of like scrunch up their nose and go, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I was like, that doesn't really make me want to like talk to you about, I don't know, like it's hard to
Hmm.
connect when, you feel like pity, but it's hard to connect with people afterwards who have not been through a shared experience. That was a bit of a ramble, but
No, you know what?
I'm glad you're connecting with people.
Thank you. I don't really think that was a ramble. I think you described it really well. You're absolutely right. It is like an awkward situation when you know that someone is experiencing grief. It's it's something that we maybe need to work on as a
Mhm,
culture too, changing the narrative and maybe asking the questions like, how can I show up for you right now?
mhm.
Or how can I support you through this? Or I don't know what to say in this moment except that I am here, you know? So I think if we can learn to have these conversations and not feel too awkward about it, that we can allow each other to support one another.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I totally understand how it can be awkward or uncomfortable for someone to like, get in the boat with you and talk about it. And it's been really interesting to meet other caregivers or other people who have lost a parent young in life, or, people that have
Yeah.
just been through a similar experience, um, can be easier to connect with. It also has given me more language to talk about it with other people who maybe aren't comfortable bringing it up. I can just
Right.
talk
Right.
about, my
Yeah.
experience and not try and break the ice for them.
Yeah, you
Um,
know what else is interesting is that I think our culture here is always on green light. We're always ready to go fast, Oh, she just died yesterday. Well, we need you to get back to work. Wait, why can't we take some time? Why can't we sit and process? Right? Not everything needs to go in the microwave. Some things have to go on the stove. We got to do this old school. You know what I mean? So I think it would be helpful, not just um, having conversations around someone who has lost someone who's no longer here, but also loss of a job, loss of a pet fur baby, or loss of a relationship. We need to learn to understand that it is okay to experience loss and we are safe to process that. So I think that this might actually turn around in a good way. I'm hoping.
I think so. You started to talk a little bit about obviously your platform, a lot of your like content and energy and focuses on self-care. You started to talk a little bit about how you've been taking care of yourself since your mom died. I'd love to know, how did you sort of like first discover the importance of self-care, and what were some of the like early steps or early changes you took once you realized the importance of this?
Yeah, I did not think it was important. I was in my late 20s and I was accustomed to the hustle. I was always running around trying to do something. I was always staying busy. That was my mindset. Like, if I'm not busy, I'm lazy and I'm not doing enough. But when you have to take care of another person and it's an adult person, it is constant busyness. So much so that you forget to slow down and take care of yourself. So, how I learned about self care was burnout. Yeah, burnout. Burnout came, met me at the door, and shut me down. I was so exhausted. I was always with an attitude and just moody. I couldn't get myself straight. I was breaking out. Like, it was just so bad. And I felt just lethargic. I had like no energy. And if you know me, that's not my game. I am always high energy. So, uh, yeah, it came to a point where I got really sick, physically ill, and I couldn't take care of my mom. And I did not like that. I didn't like that. Now she couldn't depend on me. And that made maybe it was like a ego thing for me, but I just was not going to have that anymore. So I tried to figure out what really was going on. And I realized, my sleep cycle was off. I realized that I wasn't eating properly. I made sure that my mom had her medication and her diet was really well and that we were active for her on her level that she can keep up with. But for myself, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't checking in on me. So I started to get really intentional about how I was spending my time and trying to figure out a way to compromise our days so that I had her with her time, and then I gave myself an independent time so that I could just do whatever I needed to do to refuel and recenter and then engage with her again. So at that time, being that I was in my 20s, self care was really trending. It was all about, you're a boss, babe, get your nails done, or you've got black magic, so maybe you should just get your hair done. Like it was just a lot of the glam, but I was looking for something that was gonna hit me internally, on another level that but I was really looking for self-care to hit me on a different level. I wanted something that I could practice every day because every day I was being my mom's caregiver. So I needed it regular. So I knew I couldn't sustain getting my nails done every day or my hair done every day. So I needed something. And the something that I found was um tea, drinking tea. I love tea and drinking water. I'm constantly thirsty. So I found a way to incorporate what I like, but doing it in a way that was sensorily pleasing to me. So I would drink water out of a really cool fancy glass and I would get like a gold straw, or when I'm making my tea, I would have these really funky diffusers, one that looked like a robot, one that looked like a monkey. I mean, I really had a good time and it made me so excited. It gave me something to look forward to at that specific time of the day. And other things too, like breathing exercises, because in different stages of Alzheimer's, like initially in the beginning stage, you're not going to have that much time for yourself, because your person might be in the wandering stage or might be in that stage where they're asking you all the questions all the time, 10,000 times, right? So how does one respond to that, right? After the first 96 times, it's like, all right, I'm done with you. But you can't do that. All right. Because they're just going to keep on asking and they remember and retain energy. So if you lose it, then they're going to lose it and not even understand why they have an attitude. So I had to figure out how I'm going to do this when my mom is in this early stage asking me the same question again. And how I did that was through breathing exercises. She would ask me like, hey, where are the keys? Where's the remote? Hey, where are the keys? Where's the remote? And after I tell her the 96th time, I'm just like, all right, where did you put the remote? Like it really helped. I mean, it was very small and it was very in the moment, but that little quick breath, it was everything for me. It really was like that waiting to exhale moment. And I felt so much better. I didn't feel like I was losing control. And I think a lot of that happens, mentally you're thinking like, I'm about to lose it. Or I can't control what's happening to you. I don't know what to do. And this feeling of loss, again, the anticipatory grief, this feeling of I have no control. I can't help you. I don't know what to do. You can control what you can control, and that is your breath, your thoughts, and your responses. So I learned that again through the hard way, but I still learned how to do that, and practicing it made it become so habitual. And then that became a part of my character. So even when I go out, like now, 12 years later, whenever I'm feeling frustrated or I feel a bit of social anxiety, I take a breath and I center myself again. And it does help.
Yeah, I love that, and I love how you've shared little examples of, like, a gold straw brings you joy and that's self-care to you, or, like, your robot diffuser, a deep
Yeah.
breath, because I think you're right. I think there's, like, a misconception that self-care is, like, getting a massage or, like, whatever, these big things, and it's like, it's that, and it's, like, everyday care.
Everyday
You've shared
care.
a little bit about, little places where you were able to, like, insert self-care into your days. Can and I maybe to the point of, like, it might be a massage or it might be a tea diffuser, like, self-care looks different for every person. Can you talk a little bit about how someone can identify, like, their unique self-care needs,
Yes.
and are there any resources you have for someone to help figure out, like, what might work for them?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. So I think self-care is supposed to look different on everyone. Everyone is unique, everyone is different, and that is lovely. For myself, I am a glam minimalist. So because I come from a background of fashion, I'm always deliberating off of that. So As a minimalist, I like to have, like capsule wardrobes, things that are structured with a number. So, like maybe three tops, five bottoms, things like that. And then adding a splash of glam. So, when it came to my self care, it was reflective of that. So, when it comes to other people, though, I think what is going to help them understand what self care should look like is knowing your personality and understanding your lifestyle. So when you know your personality, and there are 10,000 personality tests that you can take, but when you understand your personality, so whether you are a quiet person, maybe you're an introvert, extrovert, maybe you are very vibrant, whatever that personality is, now putting into play your lifestyle. And your lifestyle will include your financial budget. It will also include your health status, and other things like your social circles. That's all going to take a part in your self care. Because so specifically to social circles, when you are going through something emotionally, it's best to understand that not all your friends or even your family members will be able to resonate with what it is that you're going through, because they're not caregivers, or they're not a caregiver like you are, right? So, being intentional about who you speak to, about what you're unpacking, about what you're going through emotionally, that needs to be very on purpose. And you need to be very mindful of that. Maybe even going outside of that circle and hiring a life coach or a therapist, but someone that can really help you understand what you're going through and support you through that. Um, and then when it comes to your health status, self care needs to be very specific to that. So, as a person living with type 2 diabetes, my self care could not look like having chocolate every night, right? Because my glucose was not having it. So, my self care, when it came to emotional uproar, it for me was about taking a small moment to journal. And journaling, thank God, is not just restricted to writing with a pen and paper, which I think is really great. But when you're on the go and you're constantly like trying to get this wanderer to get back into their room, to get back into the bathroom, to get back into their room, I mean, you might not have time to get that piece of paper and write it in the book. So I journaled on an app, and I use my phone with that a lot of the times. Um, but yeah, back to when you are trying to create that self care moment for yourself, really understanding about your health status, that would really help as well. And then your financial space. So, as much as I love a good massage, I know it's not sustainable to have that every month, or maybe not even every 2 weeks. So, what I liked to do was create a list of the things that I really enjoy, that I know I can't do every day or even every month, but I would write it down. And then I would have my circle, which would be encompassed of my family and my friends. And I would make a birthday list for myself. And when my birthday came around, I would ask for these gift certificates, like, hey, I would like a massage. I would like this bottle of perfume. You know what I mean? Like, so that helped me with my financial space when it came to self care. And also, really, really taking advantage of all of the free services that were out there. There are free coloring books or pages that you can download to just color and do some, um, you know, movement meditation. Meditation is great when if you could like sit down and actually meditate, like close your eyes, do the breathing, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you want to go. So moving meditation is super awesome, because you can literally go with what you're doing and still find that sense of serenity. Um, so that is really helpful. Just finding out what the free resources are, going to the library and finding out if there are any free Audible books, books that you can listen to. Maybe that would be the way that you have those self care moments. And I think once you can encompass all of those things, those areas, those three specific areas, then you can really figure out what self care will look like for you.
Yeah, I love that. You answered sort of my next question around, like, a lot of caregivers are no, it's good, but like a lot of caregivers are, finances are tight and, some people don't have the resources, like you said, to do these sort of extravagant things. You mentioned you found or know of, free resources that are available for different things. Do you know them off the top of your head? Like, can you share where people might look if they're looking for free resources, like what you just mentioned, like coloring sheets, or do you have a, meditation app that you liked?
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. So the library is an amazing source to find a ton of different free available activities that you can get into, and it's really good too because it's also a mental exercise, and you can also share that with your loved one depending on the stage that they're in. So if you have the coloring pages, you can have your loved one color with you, and that's a really great bonding activity. Another thing that I love apps. I'm always with my phone, stays connected to me. So, one app that I use for meditation is called Insight Timer. So, as I had mentioned before, like my sleep cycle was kind of off. And on Insight Timer, they have a ton of sleeping meditations. And those meditations are really powerful. They are like adult bedtime stories. It's like Peter Pan or Alice in Wonderland, and it's really cool. They make you feel the fear, like, ugh, but also it's soothing. I don't know how they balance that, but it works. And then there's also like guided meditation, which is really great. I do also have like the Peloton app. And that is helpful because they have different routines, like walking routines. They have um, yoga, breathing exercises on there as well. So I like that I can still move around and still show up for myself in that way. But those are, well, Peloton isn't free. Well, it's free for like 30 days. but as far as the app goes, Insight Timer is a free app, and also the library is a really great resource. And I would even mention using your directory wherever you live and asking for free therapy services because that is also available to a lot of cities.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing all that. And something that keeps standing out to me as you talk is like creating moments of self-care. It doesn't have to be this thing that's like isolated from the rest of your day where you carve out 2 hours to sit down. You can like build in these moments, amongst all the other, chaos of caregiving.
Yes.
Um, I don't know if this was true for you, but I do know that many caregivers struggle with feelings of like guilt or like they're neglecting their loved one when they take time for themselves. Um, can you just talk a little bit about that, what that was like for you, and how people can like move past these feelings of
Yeah.
guilt or otherwise?
Yeah. Guilt is like the worst boogeyman ever. What a bully. I mean, good God. But guilt is real. And it was something that I faced throughout my 12 years of being my mom's caregiver. Like to the very end, I still had those little tinges of guilt. And I really I really think it boils down to a mindset shift. You have to give yourself permission. If you have to make it a mantra, then so be it. I give myself permission to show up for me today. I am allowed to take up space for me today. You have to give yourself permission to do that. And then you can start to break down this reason as to why you feel guilty. So for me, my reason for feeling guilty is my culture. I come from a very hard working family, and to sit down and relax is a problem. It is taboo. You cannot do that. Are you sitting down? No, you can't do that. So I had to also, find a way to break that. It almost felt like a generational curse. Like, I'm breaking this down. I cannot. I need to take a break, and it is okay for me to sit here with my feet up, or it is okay to just sit and listen to some music with this lady. Like, I please allow me that. And having the conversations with my family members, or even with some of my friends, like who would have wanted to see me and spend time with me, and I was tired, saying no and actually meaning it and making it a complete sentence like, "Ooh, I'm not putting dot, dot, dot. It's just a dot. That's it. It's a no. I'm not going." and there was fear with the guilt. So I was afraid that people would be upset with me or disappointed. And I had to, again, learn to get over that and give myself permission to show up for me. Because if I broke down and got sick again, who was going to do what I do regularly every day for my mother and even for myself? No one, just me. So I had to start showing up for myself in that way. And I'm really proud of the work that my mom and I did in this caregiving journey because we helped each other find the strength in a lot of the debilitating situations. You know, when you are surrounded with this enormous amount of guilt, it does feel debilitating because you don't feel like you're deserving of, taking a longer shower or going for a walk outside. Like you don't feel like you should be doing that because you should be with your person, but why? You need to find a balance where you have independence and they also have independence. You don't want to become so dependent on each other that you start to lose your identity. They will also lose their identity in you. So we need to start learning how to find the balance of not feeling guilty, figuring out where that guilt is coming from, and then processing it and finding a way to just show up for ourselves without the guilt. Right?
We had a therapist from Cerebral on the podcast, and she talked about self-care as like and the guilt that can come around this, or as a, what did she say? It's like a principle of mattering. Like when you're
Ooh.
caring for someone else, there might be different levels of independence. So someone requires more time by way of like activities of daily living and this sort of thing. But if you can like accept that you don't matter any less than that person just because the level of independence is different, she was like, then it makes it a lot easier to take, like, get rid of this, feeling of guilt. And I
Oh,
thought that
that's
was interesting. She said it much more eloquently than I just did, but
oh,
I
she
can
said it
I
more
can link the
eloquently than I did. Yeah.
I can link the podcast because when she said that, I was like, oh, that, it changes it for me, even the way that I think about self-care. I matter no less than this person.
Right.
This person just has, has less independence than I do. So I thought that was interesting.
I think
You,
that is interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
you started to talk about, boundary setting and saying no as a form of self-care. Can you talk a little bit more about how you like established and maintained boundaries and how, like, what impact that had on you and your mom?
Whew. Okay, so yes. So saying no was, I mean, it makes you sweat. It really feels like a workout when you first start it because you haven't done it in a while, right? But it's a muscle. Okay. So if you think about it that way, you should practice it. You should practice it regularly. Get comfortable hearing yourself say it. Like, oh, okay, no. Woo. But with my mom and I again back to finding those moments of independency. I had to affirm with my mom when I was not available. And even though we lived in the same house, there were times where I wanted to just be in my room and just laying down, listening to an audible. And with the cameras in the house, it made it very functional for her to still, do her wandering or whatnot and not getting any problems or trouble. So she was still safe. And I felt relieved. That also helped me with the guilt. It's like protecting my place. How can I do that so I don't feel like I need to be watching her all the time? Well, I can incorporate technology. I can get my own Amazon Echo. I can get my Ring cameras. I can do all the things. I get all the locks. You know what I mean? So that also helped with the guilt. But back to saying no, I had to practice with my mom. And thank God I took advantage of her repeating the same question because then it helped me to repeat the same answer. Hey, it's still a no. Yeah, it's a hard no, too. Thank you for asking again. But I took that challenge and I guess I transmuted that energy because when it came to my mom's care team and how they were treating her at a specific stage in her dementia journey, I had to affirm no on her behalf. I had to learn the power of my voice as her advocate. And that in turn helped me to become my own advocate with my own health. And back in the days, I would always listen to the adults. I always listened to the doctors and everyone who's in charge. And I never took the time to do my own research and understand what it was that they were saying or diagnosing me with. But when it came to my mother, I was like so obsessed with her. So I paid attention to every detail. And when it came to her diagnosis, I read all the books and tried to ask all the questions. So I was really involved. So when it came to her care and speaking with her care team, I was very adamant about saying no. No, you will not speak to me about her with her sitting next to me. You will speak to her. She is here and I'm here to support. And even when she was in that stage where she was forgetting a lot of her words, she is still a human deserving of dignity. She's still a human going through this experience of dementia, but she's still a human. So you're going to respect her and treat her as thus. And yeah, I mean, it takes practice until you start using it as a superpower.
Do you remember like the, I don't know, the tipping point between, sort of like a tentative no, like, I think I'm gonna say no as a full sentence, and feeling like empowered by that? Do you know if there was like a tipping point or like a certain amount of time it took to practice it?
Yeah, it took a really long time for me because I had a lot of pushback from family and friends. Like, come on. I mean, they are so freaking convincing. Like, come on, Nick, don't you want to go out? No, I'm tired. Come on, Nick, I'll pick you up. No, I'm still tired. So it took practice. It really did. And what helped me though with the practicing is really listening to my body. I learned that when my mom was in the final stages of Alzheimer's because she had become nonverbal. So all that I can do to connect with her is to look and listen and pay attention to her body language. And that helped me to pay attention to my own body and how I was moving. I remember my mom when there were too many people in the room, she would start to tear off her nails, and I interpreted that as she's nervous right now. She does not feel comfortable. And then other things too, like she would rub her leg, and I would indicate that as okay, maybe she's experiencing pain, because she did have arthritis. So yeah, that helped me to understand how to listen to my body and to really show up for myself in that space. So when I had a friend who wanted to take me out and I knew I wasn't feeling well. I knew I was just exhausted from the day. I said no, and I affirmed it with a period, a full stop, because it didn't need an explanation. No is still no, and it's good as gold. And later on, a lot of the friendships that I did have, they ended up dissipating. Like they ghosted on me, and I do understand why, because again, not everyone is going to be in your role or understand all the things that the sacrifices that you have to make and the time lapses and consumption. They won't really understand that, especially if you're young in this journey. So it was hard to let them go, but at the same time, I was really glad that I was able to stand up for myself and feel empowered by that. And then, practicing it with my mom's care team, that came easy because it was my mom. So I was fighting for her. I wasn't fighting for myself. But when it came to me, like I'm like, ooh, I just want you to like me, or I don't want you to be mad at me. Don't get disappointed. But for my mom, I don't care. Listen, no, you're not giving her that. She is very petite. She can't handle that dosage. No, come back again with something else. Why is that? Why do I have the energy for her? And then for me, it's like all this, I'm like timid all of a sudden. I don't have anything to say. Yeah, I took a lot
That
of
that
interest.
millennial urge to be liked.
Yeah. I don't like it. It's for the birds. No thanks.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing about, it takes some practice and it's probably going to feel a little bit awkward to start, but like you
Yeah.
obviously feel empowered by it and passionate about it now, the ability to set a boundary and like stand firm by it. So I think that's
Yes.
encouraging for other people to hear. You and your mom started making jewelry.
Yes.
And that was a thing that brought her and you both joy and also gave you some sense of routine.
Yes.
Can you just talk about this experience and how that finding something that worked for her, like a hobby that brought her joy, how this might translate to other caregivers?
Yeah. I think it also boils down to the question that you asked earlier about trying to figure out what your self care should be like. So, making jewelry for my mom and I was like self-care because it's very therapeutic when you are in that mode, that work mode. You're grinding, you're using all of your elements really. You're using your sense of touch, your sense of sight, sometimes even your sense of smell, because different products smell differently, like wires to elastic, even certain beads, like the texture, some are smooth, some are coarse. So your brain is triggering all of these sensations. So it does become like this therapy moment when you are sitting down doing the same repetitive task, putting one coarse bead into the wire, putting the smooth bead next to the coarse bead, and just repeating it. So it was really calming for my mom. And it was also very calming for me. And my mom was really creative. So she would come up with all different types of way to create these necklaces or bracelets. I think also it gave her a sense of purpose and a sense of self because it was a task and it was a job. And, even today, when you have a job, there's so much pride that comes with that. And the pride comes from it, you're showing who you are in this specific role, right? So it becomes a part of your identity. And it's always very tricky, when you think about how to do the work life balance when work is your life, right? But when you can separate yourself from the work and create an identity outside of that, then you can find that sense of balance. So for my mom, having the job of making jewelry, it did give her back that sense of purpose. Like, oh, I'm here to do something. I'm here to take care of this is my responsibility. And that gave her joy, yes. But it also helped her to identify who she was. I am important. I am doing something that is important. I am important. And that she kept on repeating it too. So that became her mantra. And I encourage all caregivers to find some activity that you can connect and bond with your loved one that can give them back that sense of self, that sense of purpose, and also fun. You know, have a good time with your person. Dementia is what it is. But in the moment, every day, being present for your loved one is something magical. And not every day, obviously, is going to feel like, oh my God, this is a rainbows in the sky. No, of course not. But you can still make those magic moments throughout the day, or maybe skip that day and go to the next, start afresh. But with my mom, we didn't just start doing jewelry. We actually did a whole bunch of other activities until we found jewelry, and jewelry stuck. But before that, I tried to get her to do yoga and like going to after schools and helping like kids and trying to be active in the church, like doing the things that she had enjoyed, even joining like the Y with her. And that was always something else because I was super young and it was all these senior citizens. And it was like I was invading their space, but it is what it is. I just tried different things to see what she really gravitated towards. And eventually making the jewelry had ended because she had progressed to a different stage, and that turned into a bonding activity of coloring with her and listening to music. And then eventually that evolved into just watching movies with her and bonding with her that way, like holding her hand and talking to her or rubbing her shoulders and just connecting with her. That sense of touch is really powerful. So I would just encourage all caregivers to do that. Find something, find some activity that you're going to also enjoy that you can do with your loved one.
Yeah, I love that. I love that jewelry making. It was like, it took some trial and error, but you found it. And then I really like what you just shared about like once that wasn't possible anymore, coloring, watching movies, you've
Yeah.
spoke about it already, but like the sense of trying to maintain her dignity throughout and not just saying, well, she can't color anymore. So she can just sit in bed. Like I like that you still found activities that, you guys could still stay connected and
Oh, absolutely.
adapted to,
Yeah.
what she was able to do. So, I really like that. You obviously still have, jewelry is obviously still like a key part of your life. Your platform, a log cabin in Brooklyn, has, transformed from, an educational blog to like a full blown brand and jewelry collection. Um, can you tell us a little bit about that and how you're using it as a vehicle to, raise awareness and advocacy for Alzheimer's?
Yes, absolutely. I was really passionate about a log cabin in Brooklyn from Jump Street. And when I first started it, it really was a blog. I had moved into the basement of a house that was next door to my mom. And that basement had wood panelings everywhere. So I felt like I was living in a log cabin. And at the same time, um, I felt like I was rebuilding my life because I had just quit my big career and I'm trying to help my mom, who was my best friend, but she didn't seem like my best friend anymore. I'm trying to relearn her and also learn who I am. Like, do I always have to be busy? Like, why can't I just relax? Why am I so anxious? Like, learning all these things. And I wrote about that. I wrote about how difficult it was to face these things and feel so low. Like you're all alone. You just got thrown in there. And that eventually led into my mom and I finding that activity of making jewelry. And then we used to do a lot of farmer market grocery shopping. And I remember someone had stopped my mom and asked her where she got her necklace from. And I had said, "Oh, yeah, she made that." And they were like, "Oh my God, are you selling?" Well, we are now. Okay. And so we started an Etsy shop. And then eventually I was able to open my own website where I would sell our products. And I asked my mom like about this new lifestyle that we were on and the journey that we were taking. And I asked her how comfortable she would be with me sharing about our story. And she was really comfortable with it. And I think also because she was a nurse, she also had a passion for healing and helping people. So I eventually took our story and put it into social medias, which was new at the time, 12 years ago. So then I started sharing our story. I started talking about what our day was going to look like, or making videos of my mom making the jewelry, or and it was like mundane things. I would show my mom helped me put the groceries away. And because again, when the stages they do shift, you don't know if it's going to last for 6 months or 2 years. So sometimes when my mom, she was able to help me with the groceries, and she was able to put the grocery where it should be, like, frozen food in the freezer type of thing. Then it got to a point where she was just leaving it on the floor. So, okay, now we have to shift, we have to pivot. So maybe if you can't help me put the groceries away, maybe you can help hand the groceries to me and I'll put it away. So I would share all these stories and I would get a lot of feedback, like positive feedback from the community. And I ended up growing a community of amazing caregivers. And it made me feel so validated when I heard that, or read a lot of their messages saying how they've never seen someone who looked like them caring for a loved one and doing it in such a positive way. Because I think the takeaway had always been this negative light on dementia, or you're only seeing it at the final stages. But even if you did see it at the final stage, there's still grace in that. Like my mom was at a point where she wasn't speaking, she wasn't able to move, but I had fidget pillows for her. And I could she can still move her fingers. So I would put the fidget pillow right near her fingers and she would play with it for hours. Or I would have like my cat, and I would put him on her bed so she could at least put her hand on his fur, and feel some type of sensory stimulation. But there's always something to find that can be helpful for both you and for your person. So I'm glad that I was able to show that on our social media platforms, but also share it into what we were doing at Alcebe, a log cabin in Brooklyn, because it really did evolve into this. I think like such an amazing space for wellness, and not just a trendy, oh, what are you doing for self-care this month type of situation or conversation. Now it was more about how are you showing up for your overall well-being today? Yeah, today. How are you doing? Did you drink water yet? Oh, did you go outside? Did you take your multivitamins? Because there's gummies for that. So I like that it has translated to something even more impactful for caregivers and the community.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, you can feel that through your social channels, through talking to you, even just on your site, like even if you just landed on your site without having like heard you speak before, I think, the heart of this is very clear.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
we like to ask, you're welcome. We like to ask everyone, as like a final question to the podcast, looking back now, you have 12 years of experience. Obviously, life is changing for you now, but what do you wish you had known at the very beginning of your caregiving experience that you know now?
Oh, I wish that I knew about intuitive caring. I like I had mentioned before, I used to just believe the adults and believe the doctors and just don't even do my own research, just trust, blind faith, right? But throughout my years on this journey, I because my mom was my person, and maybe because I was obsessed with her and I just paid so much attention to her, I really knew her. I understood her. I knew when she was nervous. I knew when she was afraid. I knew when she was happy. And I knew when she had a UTI. And those things didn't come with like big bells and whistles. Yeah, those things didn't come with bells and whistles. It had no grand announcements. It was just a knowing. And I did doubt myself a lot, and not just because I wanted to because it's Sunday. I doubted myself because people doubted me. Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you're being dramatic. Oh my God, can you just let her do whatever she wants to do? And I wish that I had known earlier to trust myself, because a lot of this caregiving hustle is about intuitive care, about just knowing your person, understanding what they're going through, putting yourself in their shoes and being empathetic to that. So that would be the one thing that I wish I knew sooner to just trust my intuition.
Yeah, I think that's so empowering I think it's true. You see a doctor or whomever that's like in authority and, they must know better.
Right.
Or it's easy to like explain something away. I did this to myself where you like, I was gonna say I gaslit myself. Maybe that's aggressive, but like I would explain
No, you're
away things
right.
because I was like, no, 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 it's this thing, or this sort of thing. And I agree with you. I wish that I had like paid closer attention to my intuition earlier on, in my own caregiving journey, because I think that would have it would have been helpful at the beginning. So that's super helpful to share
Yeah.
what you know now to those that are, beginning their caregiving journey.
Yeah, Katie, you're right. It is gaslighting. Yeah. We gaslight ourselves. We
Yeah.
allow others to gaslight us too
Yeah.
because we trust them. But why is it that we're trusting them so much? Where's the validation coming from? Why do we feel like they can be validated but not our voice? Why?
Yeah.
I think that's a great introspective conversation to have with ourselves. Like, okay, so what is it that they're giving me that I can't give myself? Is it that they know what they're talking about? Okay, so now I'm going to do the research so I know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. So I think that would have helped me as well. So I would have felt more sturdy and confident in my intuition. Like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. When someone has a UTI, these are the symptoms that occur. These are what I'm seeing and witnessing in my mom. So she needs an antibiotic. Yeah, now, immediately, actually. Right?
Yeah. I love that. If people would like to, join your community and follow along with you online, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, you can find me on practically all the social media platforms, the big guys. And so I'm on a log cabin in Brooklyn on Instagram and on Twitter, Pinterest, and I do believe Facebook.
Awesome. We'll make sure to tag you everywhere so people can find you.
Thank you.
Nikki, I really appreciate you sharing so honestly about, your caregiving experience and what you've learned, and um, how you have baked in self-care moments into your journey.
Thank you so much. It has been such an honor. Thank you for making space for this conversation. I had such a pleasure. Thank you again, Katie.